It is the 5th of May 2014 and many thanks for joining us on Ebru Africa Primetime News. I'm Kamene Goro. Now we have a whole lot in store for you tonight, but first let's have a look at the stories making waves in the African continent and the world over. Nairobi blast update. The death toll set at 3 with at least 80 injured in Nairobi highway blast. South Sudan massacre. Killing of civilians was not systematic according to rebel commanders.
We promise that wherever these girls are, we'll surely get them out.
Bring our girls back. Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan promised to seek the release of 200 schoolgirls. Kenya Nurses Week. Kenyan government gives an undertaking to address the long-standing issue of nurses shortage. Let's jump straight into it. We start off our bulletin in Kenya, where the latest updates on the twin bus blast in Nairobi indicate that so far 3 people have been killed and at least 70 others wounded when 2 buses driving along the busy Thika highway in the Kenyan capital of Nairobi was struck by explosive devices yesterday evening. Now, one of the explosions ripped through the vehicle, leaving a huge hole on the carriage. The 2 buses that were about a kilometer apart from each other were heading out of the city center. Our reporter Hezbon Mogambi has more.
It was supposed to be a calm Sunday on Thika Road, Kenya's modern superhighway. A day for businessmen along the highway to earn a living until about 5:30 p.m. when the attack happened.
While standing on the other side of the highway, I heard people say there had been an attack. Minutes later, I saw people falling off the bus from the windows. I immediately rushed there to help.
The Sunday blast here at Homeland in Nairobi came barely hours after the twin blast in Mombasa, which claimed 4 lives and wounded 15 others. Though safe, the explosion brought terror to their business premises and left them with horrific memories.
I
have never seen something like this before. I just see them on TV. This is my first time to see such a thing. I'm very worried. I'm very shaken. I have seen people hurt. One man's foot was blown off.
Kenya has been a target of Al-Shabaab attacks since 2011 for sending troops to the war-torn Somalia. Fear is rife among members of the public following the sporadic attacks across the country, with many questioning the efficiency of the security agencies. For Ebru Africa News, I'm Hezbon Mogambi.
The Kenya Defense Forces will not be withdrawn from Somalia despite a spate of attacks in Kenya linked to the Al-Shabaab. Now, this was revealed by the Deputy President William Ruto just a day after a twin attack on passenger buses in Nairobi. Our reporter Hezbon Mogambi has more details.
It was a weekend that has left many Kenyans fearing for their safety following a spate of terror attacks in Nairobi and Mombasa.
Our world has changed since 1998 bomb attack and the September 11, 2001. Everywhere in the free world, vigilance has pervaded every facet of life and for everyone. Kenyans must realize now that we live in this world and begin to adjust accordingly.
The attacks are seen by many as revenge attacks by Somali-based militant group Al-Shabaab for Kenya's incursion into Somalia since 2011.
Of our efforts in Somalia, all including Al-Shabaab operations and their bases have been substantially weakened. Unable to confront our security agencies directly, the terrorists have now resorted to soft targets to pressure Kenya into relenting and withdrawing from Somalia. We will not relent and we will not withdraw from Somalia. We will not be cowed or intimidated until Somalia has a stable and secure government free of terror.
The government confirmed that 3 Kenyans died and 82 were injured in the Sunday attack along Thika Superhighway.
In total, we had about 84 victims from this very unfortunate incident, the attack on Thika Road yesterday. Majority of those victims came to Kenyatta. Kenyatta received 33 patients, 17 of whom are still admitted here. Then we had Aga Khan, who had about 47 patients. There I'm told about 12 are still admitted. We are working very hard to make sure that they are given the best medical care to make sure they recover very quickly. And so we are also working with the Red Cross. The Red Cross have been very kind enough to work with us and support us by confirming that for those who are admitted in private hospitals, they will not have to worry about the cost. The government and the Red Cross will make sure that the bills are settled, and so even the ones at Aga Khan, they will not have to worry that the bills will be high. And so we have given commitment to the management of Aga Khan Hospital to make sure that they look after those patients until they fully recover.
Ruto also challenged the judiciary to work closely with other arms of government in combating terrorism.
Records indicate that many terror suspects have absconded bail and put themselves beyond the reach of law enforcement. Among them is Fuad Abubakar Maswab, who is believed to have fled to Somalia while out on a Kenya shilling 10 million bond. He is co-accused with Jermaine Grant and had been arrested while in possession of explosives. Because of the bond he enjoyed, he has absconded that bond and is now perpetrating terror activities from Somalia.
For Ebro Africa News, I'm Esbon Mugambe.
The Yemeni army on Sunday killed 40 Al-Qaeda suspects, mainly foreigners, and wounded dozens of others on day 6 of a major offensive in southern Yemen. Now, all this according to military officials.
The Defense Ministry said that most of the terrorists were killed in Shabwa province during the ongoing operation against Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. Majority of those killed or wounded are Saudis, Afghans, Somalis, Chechens, and others. General Hamed Al-Yafi, commander of the 3rd Military Region, said the armed forces were unprecedentedly ready to face this terrorist organization. He said the Al-Qaeda elements will not escape death and troops will fight them until they are uprooted from Yemen, which cannot be a home for terrorism. Among the Al-Qaeda fatalities have been 2 foreign commanders, Abu Islam al-Shishani, who had Chechen's links, and Abu Muslim al-Zubeki, an Akwap leader in Abian province who hailed from Uzbekistan.
The Ministry of Health in Kenya has promised to deal with the current nurse shortage in the country by employing 12,000 more nurses annually in order to improve on provision of services. Now, speaking during the International Nurses Week in Nairobi, Kenya's Health Cabinet Secretary said that the country's medical sector needs a total of 42,000 nurses in order to curb the current shortage. Ebro Africa News reporter Agnes Gakunga with that story.
The huge shortage of nurses in Kenya is currently affecting provision of services in many hospitals, with those currently on duty being forced to work for longer hours. This crisis has even worsened with a devolved system of government where many nurses have been transferred to the counties.
This current scenario often leaves nurses overstretched and could easily lead to low morale.
The ministry has now promised to deal with the stalemate by employing more nurses annually to meet the acceptable levels of staffing in our health facilities. The Ministry of Health will have to employ over 40,000 nurses to bridge the existing huge gap.
We are not ignorant to the fact that we are overstretched, but by doing so, please bear with us because we are in the process of making sure that we employ additional nurses, 12,000 per year.
Shortage of nurses in Kenya has been a thorny issue for many years. This vice is attributed to various factors, including nurses leaving Kenya in search of greener pastures abroad, as well as the desire to own and manage their own clinical practices. Just a week ago, nurses in Kenya threatened to go on strike if the national and county governments failed to pay them millions of shillings in form of uniform allowances agreed upon in December last year. As Kenya joins the world to mark the International Nurses Week, the pledge by the Ministry of Health to employ more nurses will indeed go a long way in improving provision of health services, especially in public hospitals. Agnes Gakunga, Ebru Africa News, Kenyatta National Hospital in Nairobi.
Schools in Kenya are set to reopen this week for the beginning of the second academic term at a time when the country is experiencing an insecurity upsurge. Now, a wave of attacks lately targeting public transport has sparked fears as most students use public service vehicles to go to school. Most schools in the country are expected to be fully functional and operational tomorrow, with few schools reporting full attendance today. Now, this academic term is set to start off amidst the questionable political and security temperature, with the country facing a rise in terror attacks. Now, the most recent attack, which killed 3 and left 86 wounded, still fresh in the minds of Kenyans. Both parents and students remain skeptical on the state of security in the country at the moment. South Sudanese rebels did not systematically kill hundreds of civilians when they captured the oil town of Bentiu. Now, this is according to a rebel commander airing his sentiments on the ongoing chaos in the region.
The United Nations last month said rebel forces had slaughtered men, women and children hiding in a mosque, church and hospital after capturing Bentiu, picking out their victims according to their ethnicity. South Sudan has been mired in fighting for months between President Salva Kiir and rebel fighters loyal to his sacked deputy Riek Machar. Speaking in Bentiu, which still showed signs of April's fighting, a leading rebel commander said UN assertions of a massacre were wrong and those civilians who were killed died in crossfire.
That was rubbish. The UN are biased. The report they did, it was the report that the UN themselves are complicated. Because if there are civilians who have been caught in the fighting, the civilian was prevented by the government not to go to protection of enemies. And then the fighting took place in the town. Yes, some civilians may be caught in the middle, but it is corrupt fire.
The rebel forces seized the capital of oil-producing Unity State, Bentiu, last month and warned oil firms to pack up and leave within a week. The rebels again said Kiir should quit in favor of fresh elections.
If Salva Kiir is willing to save the people of South Sudan, let them resign. And let the people of South Sudan select their own another leader. So the country will be served. Greed of power, this will bring a problem because he's the one who started by killing Nuer. He killed Nuer. Yeah, and I'm sure that the media was not even there. There was nobody even talking about it. The thousand people of Nuer were killed, was massacred. Nobody even gave the report. Even in the UN, even in Jonglei, recently, people were killed.
The United States, Britain, the European Union and Norway have threatened measures against the country's warring sides, Last month, US President Barack Obama authorized possible targeted sanctions against those committing human rights abuses or undermining democracy and obstructing the peace process.
Moving away from Africa, Afghan residents continue to dig for bodies today, 3 days after a deadly landslide hit a remote village in northeast Afghanistan. Now, the side of the mountain above Abi Barak collapsed on a Friday as people were trying to recover belongings and livestock after a smaller landslip hit just a few hours earlier.
Hundreds of families were destroyed in the landslide that were triggered by torrential rain. Officials worry another section of the mountain could collapse at any time. The United Nations on Sunday put the death toll from Friday's massive landslide in Badakhshan province bordering Tajikistan at up to 500. However, local officials say the number could be as high as 2,700.
From my family of 15 members that were living here, only one of them is still alive because he was not here when the landslide took place. He was in Kabul. 8 family members of my cousin's family were trapped over here, and about 16 other relatives are still under the mud. We demand the government to bring bulldozers here in order to take the bodies out of the mud.
It is unlikely the final figure could be known, as officials say it is impossible to retrieve the bodies buried in up to 50 meters of mud and debris. Fears of another landslide prompted officials to evacuate the remaining 700 families, or about 4,000 people, to safer ground nearby. The United Nations said the focus was now on the displaced people, with their main needs being water, medicine, food and shelter.
After the landslide, we're in huge misery. In the past 3 days, we have not received any assistance. Also, women and children in this area are ill. So far, no one has showed any sympathy for us.
Despite offers of help from the United Nations and NATO-led coalition troops battling Taliban insurgents, the Afghan government says it can manage on its own with the assistance of aid agencies.
Talking more political matters, thousands of economic freedom fighters supporters filled up the Lucas Moripo Stadium in Atteridgeville, Pretoria on a Sunday at the fledgling party's final rally ahead of Wednesday's elections.
Strutting out into a sea of red with supporters wearing party colors as berets and jumpsuits, singing and dancing as they were entertained by local musicians, Party Commander-in-Chief Julius Malema took to the stage to outline the party's plan to curb poverty and increase employment, including the nationalization of the country's mines and introduction of free education and a minimum wage.
Only the policy of EFF, nationalization, will create jobs. Nationalization will bring equality. Nationalization will redistribute the wealth of the country. No one speaks about nationalization. No one speaks about expropriation of land without compensation. We will create more jobs through protecting our industries, because our industries are undermined by cheap items which are imported into South Africa.
The message have resonated with poor blacks resentful that whites still control the bulk of the economy 2 decades after the end of white minority rule. However, Malema says only his party can cut employment through nationalization of mines, banks and other sectors of the economy.
Deliver victory on the 7th of May. Amanda! Amanda!
Opinion poll released by Ipsos indicated that the Economic Freedom Fighters, a radical leftist party led by former ANC youth leader, was expected to garner 4.7% in its 7th May election.
Still with South Africa, May 7th marks South Africa's first born-free election. Now, many of the youth born after the end of apartheid are first-time voters and are concerned with finding jobs. Now, South Africa's ruling ANC party has predicted that it would sweep the national elections this week on promises to build more houses, create jobs and eradicate inequality. But on the other hand, opponents have warned of a shock for a party that they say has been arrogant after 20 years in power.
An Ipsos poll on Sunday suggested the ANC would win 63.9% of the vote, down from 65.9% 5 years ago, and short of the two-thirds majority needed in Parliament to push through changes to the Constitution. April 27th this year marked the 20th anniversary of South Africa's first multiracial elections, which ended 3 centuries of white domination and 46 years of formalized oppression of the black majority under the apartheid system. 20-year-old Sabelo Fumba is a first-time voter and a political science student at the University of Johannesburg. He said as he campaigned for the Economic Freedom Party that he is disappointed with the ruling African National Congress for not delivering on its promises.
It really hurts to see black people living in such conditions. 20 years into our freedom, I am not happy. I want to go and campaign in the suburbs, while I know deep inside that our people are still living like this and suffering.
He also condemned the inequality that persists between blacks and whites, who are likely to earn 6 times as much, as a form of economic subjugation. The bottom line for many youngsters who have registered to vote is that no matter how disillusioned they may be with the scandals that have typified Zuma's time in office, they remain enthralled to the ANC-imbued consciousness of their elders. However, its current crop of leaders, many of whom spent long periods in jail or exile, remain firmly wedded to the glorious but ever more distant past of the liberation struggle. But while the ANC's victory is almost guaranteed accordingly to polls, some still say the whole political system is in crisis.
I think the people who were born after the end of apartheid are very politicized. They can see what's wrong in the country. They have been through the schooling system. They can see the mismanagement of the education in this country. They have been victims of the mismanagement of the public sector education system. So they are very aware of the problems that the country is faced with, and I think they will vote accordingly.
According to statistics, among the youth, 40% of South Africans are unemployed. Accordingly, nearly 3 in 4 view unemployment as a big problem. Of an estimated 1.9 billion people aged 18 to 19, just 646,313 have registered for the May 7th election, a sign-up rate of just 1 in 3. The registration rates for voters aged 20 to 23 are not much better.
Talking international relations, the U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry announced $30 million in aid for credible elections in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, this came as he urged President Joseph Kabila to respect the Constitution by not seeking a 3rd term. Here's that riveting report.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry's arrival in Congo this weekend, shaking hands with President Joseph Kabila. He urged him not to try and seek a 3rd term in office. Some opposition groups accuse Kabila of wanting to change the constitution ahead of the next election so that he is able to run. It's slated for 2016 with support of the U.S.
As a sign of our commitment, I am pleased to announce that $30 million will be immediately made available from the United States in additional funding in order to support transparent and credible elections, as well as recovery and restructuring programs in the Eastern DRC.
Kabila has not publicly announced whether he'll try to run again.
And now this week marks a celebration of the partnership between Kenya and the European Union. Now the week dubbed the European Week began today with a display of photographs that show the impact of this partnership.
At the National Museums of Kenya, a room set aside for temporary exhibitions showcases Kenya and European Union partnership of development in pictures. It is an over 3 decades partnership that has culminated to a European Week, meant to celebrate EU's presence in the country.
And this week's theme of partnership through development is illustrated in the vivid array of images that you see, depicting European development cooperation at work.
In attendance of the photo exhibition launch was Cabinet Secretary for ICT Fred Matiang'i. He underscored the importance of this partnership that has continued to improve the living standards of the most vulnerable Kenyans, especially women and children.
Indeed, the EU-funded community development programs, as well as the rural poverty reduction in sectors such as education, water and sanitation, health, infrastructure, trade, and integrated programs targeting the poorest and most vulnerable communities in Kenya have enabled the underprivileged to gain access to improved healthcare services, reduce maternal deaths, improve food security, and gain access to safe drinking water.
Ambassador Lodjuik Braid notes that at the end of it all, they will be launching an annual report of the European development contribution to Kenya. The EU has set aside 3.4 billion shillings to build quay links, ease congestion in the capital city of Nairobi, and improve pedestrian safety in Nairobi city. Away from the city, the EU prides themselves in improving and developing regional maritime security capacity, as well as supporting AMISOM in Somalia.
We now move into a short commercial break, but still in store for you tonight. Chaos spreads to points beyond the restive east. Panama elections. Conservative Juan Carlos Varela elected president on Sunday.
Professional makeup.
Does your exterior complement your interior? Everyone needs a home that is inspired by nature. At Yenbo Limited, we offer durable, energy-efficient and affordable UPVC windows in attractive colors. Visit us at Wall Street Business Park off Mombasa Road. Yenbo UPVC windows. Your desire, our challenge.
Floma, professional makeup.
Welcome back. Now moving to West Africa, Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan has promised to seek the release of around 200 schoolgirls who were kidnapped from a secondary school in